I still remember the sound that broke Christmas night wide open. It wasn't a scream. Not exactly. It was something between a cry and a cough, wet, dragging, too close to human but ruined in some way that made my skin crawl. I heard it while I was sitting in my living room, the Christmas lights blinking softly around me, the heater clicking in the corner. It was quiet enough that I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Then it came again. This time closer. Right outside the window. A single, sharp knock followed. Tap. 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 Slow, deliberate, like whoever was out there already knew I was listening. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Outside, the snow reflected the faint blue of the moonlight, but everything past the window glass was swallowed in darkness. The knocking stopped, and then a voice, or what was left of one, rasped. "It's Christmas. Let me in." I didn't move. My body felt pinned in place, like if I twitched even a finger, whatever was outside would sense it. The Christmas lights flickered once, twice, then went completely dark. In the sudden pitch black, I heard the sound again, that ruined breath right against the glass now. Warm condensation formed on the window, a long, shaky exhale, and then something dragged its fingers across the pane. Scree, the kind of sound that vibrates in your bones. I held my breath, but the moment stretched too long, too thin, until I couldn't hold still anymore. I slowly turned my head toward the window, just in time to see a pale shape shift in the darkness. And as the heater died with a final clicking sigh, the voice whispered again, softer now, almost disappointed. "You forgot me." This is where that Christmas night truly began. I wasn't supposed to be alone that night. Christmas isn't meant to be quiet, or at least, that's what I'd grown up believing. My family was the kind that filled every corner of the house with noise. My mother humming while she baked, my father arguing with the radio news, my sister pestering me to help untangle the lights. Even when things weren't perfect, there was always warmth. But that was years ago. This Christmas, I found myself in a house that felt far too large for one person, especially when the snowstorm knocked the power out on half the block. Everyone else had gone to visit extended family or escape the cold. I stayed behind, mostly out of stubbornness, telling myself Christmas didn't matter, that I was fine spending it alone. When the power flickered around 11 p.m., I didn't think much of it. The storm was howling pretty hard outside, rattling the gutters and sweeping long shadows across the walls. I was curled up with a blanket, sipping cheap hot chocolate, trying to convince myself the silence wasn't getting to me. That's when I heard the first noise, a soft crunch of footsteps outside. At first, I assumed it was the wind shifting something in the yard. But the sound repeated. Crunch. Crunch. Slow. Measured. Like someone walking in a straight, deliberate line toward my house. My stomach tightened, but I didn't go to the window. I didn't want to see anything. Instead, I muted the TV and listened. Nothing at first. Just wind. The creaking of tree limbs. The hum of the heater. Then came the knock. Quiet but unmistakable. Tap, tap, tap. My blood ran cold. There are knocks you hear from friends, quick and casual. Knocks from delivery guys, impatient and heavy. This knock was nothing like those. This was soft, searching, like fingers testing the boundaries of something fragile. I forced myself to stand. "Hello," I called, voice shaking more than I wanted to admit. No response. Another knock. Louder this time. The same slow rhythm. My pulse hammered in my ears. I approached the window but kept a safe distance, peering out from the side. Snow covered everything. The porch. The railings. The branches. The kind of untouched, smooth layer you see in postcards. Except for one thing. There were footprints. Deep ones. Leading directly to my window and then stopping. Nothing stood there now. But something had. I backed away. My phone buzzed suddenly, startling me so badly I almost dropped it. The name flashing on the screen made my heart twist. Mom. I hadn't spoken to her in months, not since early summer. Our last conversation ended in shouting. Mostly my fault. I answered immediately. Mom. Static. A faint whisper. Then, in a voice that didn't sound quite like hers, "Are you alone tonight?" I swallowed hard. "What?" "Mom, I can't hear you." The line crackled. Then another voice, quiet, distant, overlapped hers. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like someone trying to speak through water. "Mom, Mom, what's going on?" The call dropped. Silence flooded the room, heavy and suffocating. That's when the lights flickered and went dark. The heater stopped. The TV died. And the only illumination left came from the faint glow of the Christmas lights, until they blinked twice and went out too. I stood there, heart pounding, eyes adjusting to the sudden blackness. Then came the breath against the window. Long, trembling, close enough that I heard moisture bead on the glass. I didn't need to look to know something was right outside again. A voice rasped, "It's Christmas. Let me in." My mind raced. No one knew I was alone. No one should be outside, not in the middle of a storm. My neighbors were miles out of town for the holidays, and the nearest house with lights on was across the frozen road. I stepped back toward the hallway, keeping my eyes locked on the window. "Who's there?" My voice broke halfway through the question. The answer came in a whisper I felt rather than heard. "You forgot me." My stomach dropped, because the voice didn't sound like a stranger. It sounded like someone I used to know, someone I hadn't thought about in years. The breath faded. The window went quiet. The prints outside seemed to rearrange themselves in the drifting snow, shifting like something was moving away. I finally flicked on my phone's flashlight and swept the beam across the room. Empty. But the moment I relaxed even slightly, a faint sound drifted from the back door. A single, dragging footstep. Then another. Whatever was outside wasn't outside anymore. I tightened my grip on the phone, heart slamming against my ribs. The house felt suddenly smaller. The air colder. Every shadow too deep, too still. And then a voice whispered from the dark hallway behind me. Not from outside, but from inside my home. Soft. Familiar. "You shouldn't be alone tonight." I turned, and saw the outline of someone standing at the end of the hall. Someone I should have remembered, but didn't. Yet, the house seemed to breathe. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind rattling the windows, felt deliberate, directed at me. I couldn't tell where the storm ended and the shadows began. I gripped the phone in one hand, bat in the other, and tried to remind myself of what was real. But reality had left me the moment the first knock sounded at the window. I moved slowly down the hallway, trying to see into the kitchen without stepping fully into it. The darkness was oppressive, almost liquid, pooling in the corners of the room. And yet, in that darkness, I felt eyes on me. Not just the figure I'd glimpsed, but countless unseen observers, lingering in the edges of vision. A soft whisper floated through the air, almost playful, almost cruel. "You remember now, don't you?" I flinched. My mind raced. Remember what? My childhood. The Christmas when everything changed. My sister, the snowstorm, her scream? My own cowardice? I had tried to bury it all, pretending those years never happened. Pretending the past didn't bleed into the present. But it had. And now the past was standing in the hallway, waiting. The pale figure stepped out from the shadows. Its movements were slow, deliberate, too precise, too human and yet wrong. The eyes, endless black pools, reflecting nothing, yet everything. It didn't speak at first. It simply watched me. And in that watching, I felt the weight of decades of forgotten moments pressing down on my chest. "You left her," it finally hissed. My knees buckled. I shook my head, muttering, "No, I didn't. It wasn't." The figure tilted its head, like it was studying me. The air around it grew colder, the shadows deepening. I realized with a jolt that every object in the room had subtly shifted. The ornaments on the tree leaned unnaturally. The blanket on the couch folded itself with impossible neatness. The pictures on the wall seemed to frown at me. I stumbled backward, trying to regain control. My bat clattered against the floor. A faint scratching came from the walls, low and insistent, like nails against plaster. And then voices, whispers overlapping each other. filled the house. You forgot me. You left me out in the snow. We waited for you. The whispers became louder, more insistent, almost chanting. I ran toward the hallway, trying to escape the voices, but every door I approached was locked, even doors that had never had locks. I pounded on them, screamed into them, but the sound didn't echo. It was swallowed immediately, leaving only the whispers behind. The back door rattled violently. I turned, and through the faint glow of the remaining Christmas lights, I saw footprints in the snow. They weren't human. They moved too fast, too precise. They led to the back door, and then stopped as if waiting. I ran to the window, hoping to see a neighbor, a car, anything familiar. The yard was empty, but the snow was not untouched. Shapes shifted just beyond visibility, crouching, watching. They were familiar in outline. My father, my sister, but grotesquely twisted. Limbs bent at impossible angles. Faces grinning with no warmth. A memory hit me then, unbidden. The Christmas of my sister's disappearance. We had argued about something trivial. A gift, a promise, a dinner. She had gone outside despite the snow, and I had laughed or shouted or both. I don't remember exactly. All I remember was the scream and the snow. Her body was never found. And now something had returned. Something that knew. I stumbled to the living room, heart hammering. The pale figure was closer now, gliding, but without sound. It wasn't walking, it was floating, sliding over the floorboards. Its black eyes fixed on me, and I felt exposed, as though all the secrets I'd buried were being unearthed. Do you remember her? It whispered. Yes. I screamed. I remember everything. The figure tilted its head again. Shadows began to peel from the walls, forming thin, sinewy shapes that circled me. Each shadow bore the semblance of someone I had known. Friends, family, strangers. All staring. Silent. Accusing. A sudden sound from the kitchen made me spin. A plate shattered on the counter, then another, then dozens. Yet no one was there. The whispers turned into fragmented words, angry, pleading, mocking. Why did you leave us? Why did you forget? It's your turn now. The floorboards beneath my feet creaked under weight I couldn't see. The house seemed alive. I backed into the corner, bat raised, chest heaving. And then the whispers coalesced into a single piercing voice. Come to the yard. You owe her. I didn't know what compelled me, whether it was terror or some perverse need for closure, but I found myself stepping outside. Snow whipped around me, freezing my face, biting at my hands. The yard was empty, or so I thought. Footprints appeared. Fresh. Leading from the house to the edge of the forest. They were hers. Small, childlike. My sister's. But when I followed them, the snow beneath them shifted unnaturally, revealing the shadows of countless others. Shadows that crouched, waited and whispered. You promised, the voices said. My head spun. The night stretched impossibly long. Time had stopped. The footprints led me deeper into the dark woods behind the house, each step echoing in the snow like gunshots. The wind carried faint laughter. Familiar laughter, twisted and hollow. I was surrounded now, the forest alive with shapes that shouldn't exist, murmuring memories, names, regrets. And then I saw her. My sister. Or something that had her shape. Pale skin, hair plastered with snow, eyes hollow, staring at me from the edge of the treeline. You left me, she said softly. Voice barely audible over the wind. I ran toward her, desperate. She didn't move. Or did she? Her outline shifted, flickered, multiplied. Behind her, shapes emerged from the trees. Every family member I had forgotten, every friend I had ignored, all waiting, all watching. I tripped, snow swallowing my hands as I fell. The shadows closed in. The whispers became voices. Voices became screams. The yard was no longer snow-covered. It was bare earth, roots, and shapes writhing beneath a thin gray fog. And in that fog, figures of my past crouched, crawling, their faces twisted with accusation. I tried to shout, tried to explain, tried to plead, but my voice failed. My mind raced. The memories came flooding in uncontrollably. The screaming of my sister, the laughter I had ignored, the warmth I had taken for granted, the promises I had broken. The snowstorm from years ago replayed itself in my head, and now I understood. The storm hadn't ended. It had never ended. "Remember," the whispers said. "You owe her. You always owed her." The figure glided closer. Its black eyes penetrated my mind. I fell to my knees, clutching my head. The shadows began to merge, swirling around me, lifting me slightly as if the air itself had weight. My sister's voice echoed inside my skull. "Why did you leave me in the cold?" I screamed. The echo carried, bouncing off invisible walls. The forest, the yard, the house, all of it distorted, rearranged itself in impossible angles. Time fractured. A door that had been behind me appeared in front. I tried to move, tried to escape, but I was trapped. Everywhere I turned, the shadows mirrored me, accused me, pushed me toward something inevitable. I realized then, this was the punishment I had been avoiding all these years. The horror wasn't something that could be fought. It wasn't an intruder or a ghost. It was me. My memories. My failures. My forgotten promises. And now, it wanted its reckoning. The whispers became a roar. The pale figure hovered over me, the shadows pressing close. And then, in one clear, final whisper, "It's your turn." I fell forward into the snow, hands reaching for nothing. The shadows enveloped me. Shapes of the past, the lost, the forgotten, all pressed against me. The wind carried their voices, accusing, angry, mournful. I realized with terror that I could not run, could not hide. The house, the yard, the forest, the memories, they were all one. And the thing I had forgotten had waited this long. I screamed until my voice broke. And in the silence that followed, I understood that the horror had only begun. The shadows pressed closer. They weren't just shapes anymore. They had form, substance, and an intent that made my blood run ice cold. Every step I took in the snow felt resisted, as if the earth itself was holding me back. The wind carried their voices, fractured, 1,000 echoes of accusation and grief, all aimed at me. "You promised. You left us. Remember what you did." I stumbled forward, tripping over roots and frozen earth, falling face first into the snow. Cold bit through my clothes, sharp as knives. My hands scraped against frozen ground. My teeth chattered uncontrollably. And yet I didn't stop. I couldn't. My sister, the figure from the forest, waited, and I knew, somewhere deep inside, that this confrontation was inevitable. I finally rose and saw her, or the thing that had once been my sister, standing near the edge of the trees. Pale, spectral, impossibly tall. The snow around her feet churned unnaturally, forming black puddles that didn't melt. She held her arms out slightly, beckoning me, and for the first time, her face, or the hint of it, seemed almost human. I called her name, my voice breaking. "Sister. It's me. I'm sorry." The figure tilted its head. The shadows around her thickened, twisting into forms I recognized. Friends, family, the neighbors I had ignored, the faces of strangers I had passed without notice. And their eyes were hollow, accusing, unrelenting. The pale figure whispered, voice like shattered glass. "Sorry. You think sorry fixes the cold? The waiting? The forgetting?" I stepped closer, and the ground beneath me warped, as if reality itself was bending. The snow became black sludge, swallowing my boots. Every step forward was a struggle. The wind screamed in my ears, drowning out reason. Suddenly, a voice rang clear, separate from the cacophony. "You must remember." It was my sister's real voice, the one I had buried in memory. It wasn't angry, not yet. Just sad. Hollow. And it cut through the madness like a blade. I staggered, falling to my knees, head spinning. Images flashed before me. Christmas mornings long past, laughter, arguments, moments I had ignored, moments I had lost. And then the scream I had never allowed myself to remember. My sister, alone in the snow, calling for me, pleading, and I had turned away. The pale figure glided closer. Its shadow stretched, merging with the forms of the forgotten, the lost, the angry. I realized then that I wasn't facing a ghost or a spirit. I was facing the embodiment of my guilt, my negligence, my forgotten promises. And it had taken shape here now, demanding recognition, demanding payment. "You left me," it hissed. The words weren't just spoken. They echoed inside my mind, vibrating through my skull. I could feel them burning into my brain. I dropped to the snow, covering my face with my hands. Tears froze on my cheeks. "I didn't mean to," I whispered. "I didn't mean to." The shadows recoiled slightly, but only for a moment. The wind intensified, carrying a chorus of voices. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all screaming in accusation. The ground trembled beneath me. The trees bent unnaturally. Time fractured. My heart raced, every beat pounding in my ears like a drum of doom. Then the figure spoke again, closer now, almost in my face. "It's too late." Something snapped. The world twisted violently. Snow turned to black mist. Shadows lunged, wrapping around me, cold as death. I screamed, fought, swung my fists at nothing, but the darkness was everywhere, suffocating, relentless. The whispers became screams, each one a memory I had tried to forget, each one a betrayal I had committed against the world and myself. Faces of my sister, my parents, my friends, flashed before me, twisted in anger, despair, hollow and accusing. I fell forward. The black sludge swallowed me past my knees. I struggled to get up, but the shadows pushed me back down, cold and unyielding. "Remember! Remember!" They cried in unison. Images assaulted me. Her laughter fading, her scream piercing, my cowardice, my absence. I gasped, sobbing, begging for release. The air burned. My lungs screamed for oxygen. And then, through the chaos, I heard a single small, distinct sound. My sister's voice, soft, almost gentle. "I just want you to see, to remember." I lifted my head. Through the fog and darkness, I could see her more clearly now. Not fully human, not fully gone. Pale, translucent, eyes wide with sorrow and accusation. The shadows around her writhed, forming twisted versions of my family, my past. I fell to my knees before her. The snow around me black and alive. "I remember. I remember everything." I cried. "I will never forget again." The wind stilled slightly. The shadows froze. The pale figure hovered, eyes locked on mine. And then it spoke, quieter this time. "Then face it." A sudden silence descended. Heavier than any sound, suffocating. And then, one by one, the shadows began to merge, forming the exact image of that Christmas night years ago. The snowstorm. My sister outside calling for me. My own frozen, paralyzed body, refusing to move. I was there. I was seeing it. Living it again. I fell forward, hands clutching the snow. The memories hit me fully now. Her scream, the snow, my father yelling, the warmth of the house just beyond reach. And I realized with absolute terror that this was not just a vision. The pale figure, the shadows, the forest, they were a reflection of my own guilt, manifesting the exact moment I had failed. "It's your turn," the figure whispered again. I wanted to fight, to escape, to scream, but every motion felt futile. The shadows pressed, the wind tore at me, the voices cried for recognition. I could feel every betrayal I had ever committed, every forgotten promise, every lapse of care. And it wasn't enough to survive. It demanded confrontation. I fell fully to the snow, sobbing, shaking. My sister, or the memory of her, floated above me, eyes wide, sorrowful. "See me," she whispered. I nodded. "I see you. I remember. I am sorry." The black shadows froze, the wind stilled. The house, the yard, the forest, everything held its breath. Then the figure leaned down, so close I could feel its cold on my face. "You cannot undo what was done, but you can face it." A sudden force lifted me, carried me into the forest of my memories. I saw every Christmas I had missed, every absence, every laugh ignored, every sorrow I had caused. The pale figure drifted beside me, guiding me through the unrelenting truth. I screamed. I cried. I begged. And all the while, The shadows observed, unrelenting, silent witnesses. Time fractured further. I wasn't sure if minutes or hours passed. The wind carried the sound of laughter, screams, whispers. I was forced to relive every moment I had buried, every memory I had denied. The terror was not in physical harm, not in a monster. It was in the truth. My neglect, my failures, my selfishness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the pale figure hovered directly over me. The shadows receded slightly, the wind calmed. Silence fell, deafening. "Do you remember?" it asked, voice soft now. I nodded weakly. "I remember. Everything." The figure's eyes, black endless, studied me. And then, slowly, it began to dissipate, melting into the shadows, leaving me alone in the snow, trembling, soaked, hollowed out. The forest returned to the quiet storm, the shadows to the normal shapes of trees and snow. But I knew I would never forget. The horror had not left me. It had marked me, etched into my memory, into my soul. I had faced it, yes, but only to be reminded forever of the night I failed, the night I abandoned the ones I loved, the night that came back to claim its reckoning. The whispers lingered in my ears, faint now, almost distant. Remember. Always remember. I stumbled back toward the house, snow crunching underfoot. The pale figure, the shadows, the forest, all gone, but their presence lingered like a weight on my chest. I realized I wasn't the same person who had stepped into the snow that night. I had been broken, remade by fear, guilt, and the undeniable knowledge that some horrors are inescapable. And somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of a child's laughter carried on the wind. Not warm, not comforting, but haunting, a reminder that the night was never truly over. The snowstorm had passed, though the wind still whispered through the trees, soft and mournful. The world outside my house appeared unchanged. Calm, serene, almost picturesque in its post-storm quiet. Yet everything felt wrong. I could feel it in my bones. The house was smaller, tighter. The air thicker, colder. The shadows, longer. They lingered in the corners, just beyond sight. I stumbled through the yard, snow clinging to my clothes, ice biting at my skin. My legs trembled with exhaustion. The forest behind the house looked as it always had, yet I knew it had changed. The shapes, the whispers, the faces of my family that had accused me, that had reached for me in the snow, they were gone, but the memory of them pressed against my skull. I returned to the house, hesitantly. Each step across the porch made the boards groan under my weight. The front door creaked open. Inside, the living room appeared normal at first glance. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, ornaments slightly tilted, as if shaken by an unseen hand. The lights blinked faintly, unevenly, casting shadows that didn't belong. I collapsed onto the couch, drenched, shivering. My hands trembled as I pressed them to my face, trying to wipe away the remnants of tears and snow. I tried to remember, to hold on to reality, but the images of that night were vivid, almost alive. The shadows, the whispers, the hollow eyes of the pale figure. They haunted me. Hours passed, though I didn't know if it was hours or minutes. Time had warped so thoroughly during the confrontation that I could not trust it. Every creak of the house, every sigh of the wind, made me flinch. I began to notice details I had never seen before. A footprint in the snow by the back door that hadn't been there before. A shadow that moved independently of the flickering Christmas lights. Objects subtly out of place. The phone lay on the floor. I dared not touch it at first. Finally, trembling, I picked it up. The screen lit up with a missed call. No name. No number. Just a call. I hesitated, then swiped to answer. Static. A faint whisper. Then her voice. My sister's, soft, almost gentle yet hollow. Remember. I dropped the phone. It skidded across the floor, screen shattering against the tile. I backed away, heart hammering. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to thicken, pulsing as if alive. I realized then that the horror had not left. It never would. It had etched itself into my life, into my soul, into the house itself. The snow outside reflected the dim light of the street lamps, but in the corner of my vision, I saw movement. Shapes crouched just beyond the fence, impossible forms that were familiar yet alien. I blinked. They were gone. I exhaled shakily, trying to convince myself that I was imagining it. But the air felt different. Heavy. Expectant. Days passed, though I did not leave the house. I could not. The world beyond the walls seemed alien, distant. Friends called, neighbors stopped by, but I found myself unable to answer. I could not explain what had happened. Even if I tried, who would believe me? Who could? It sounded insane, impossible. But the memory of her voice, the accusing shadows, the cold, endless black eyes of the pale figure, they were real. They had been there. And they had not forgiven me. I began to notice other things. The ornaments on the tree shifted slightly when I wasn't looking. The floorboards groaned under no weight. The air carried faint whispers at night, soft and insistent, as though the house itself was remembering the events of that Christmas night. I could not sleep. When I closed my eyes, I saw her, pale, silent, hollow-eyed, standing at the foot of my bed waiting. I tried to leave once. I stepped out into the yard. The snow had melted slightly, leaving black patches of ice and mud. I walked toward the road, intending to escape. But the footprints appeared again. Small, childlike, yet impossibly numerous, leading me back to the forest. Shadows flitted at the edges of my vision. Whispers grew louder as I approached the forest line. I turned, and the figures of my family, twisted and accusing, emerged from the trees. Not fully human, not fully gone. And then the pale figure, my sister, stood at the center. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The message was clear. You cannot leave. You will always remember. I fled back into the house. The door slammed behind me, echoing through the empty rooms. I collapsed once more on the couch, sobbing. I realized then that I had survived the night, physically, but something inside me had changed forever. The horror had not ended. It could not end. It had marked me, reshaped my soul, ensured that I would never forget, never rest, never escape. Weeks passed. I tried to resume life, to eat, to drink, to read, to occupy myself with mundane tasks. But everything felt hollow. Shadows moved just out of sight. Whispers came from corners, sometimes faint, sometimes insistent. Every mirror reflected my own hollow eyes, twisting slightly, reflecting a version of me that had been broken that night. I stopped answering calls. I stopped opening the door. Friends and family eventually gave up, assuming I had moved away or fallen into isolation. But I had not left. I could not leave. The memory, the guilt, the horror, it had rooted itself inside me. It followed me into every room, every corner, every shadow. One night, I awoke to the faint sound of footsteps across the living room floor. I froze. The Christmas lights flickered, casting uneven shadows that reached for me like long, dark fingers. I whispered, voice trembling, "Who's there?" No answer. Only a cold, wet breath against my neck. I turned slowly. The pale figure was standing there, impossibly close, eyes black and endless, watching me. Behind it, shadows shifted and writhed, forming the shapes of my sister, my parents, my childhood friends, all staring at me. The house groaned as if it were alive, each creak punctuating the silence. "Remember," the figure whispered. And I did. I remembered everything. The snow, the screams, the cold, the waiting, my own cowardice. I remembered the night she disappeared, the promises I had broken, the moments I had ignored, the faces I had forgotten. And I knew with perfect clarity that I would remember it forever. The figure did not advance. It did not need to. Its presence, and the presence of the shadows that clung to it, was enough. I realized then that the horror was not something that could be fought, not something that could be banished. It was a part of me now. It had claimed me. And like all things claimed by guilt and memory, it would never let go. I rose slowly, hands trembling. I spoke, though my voice sounded weak even to myself. "I remember. I won't forget." The figure tilted its head. The shadows around it quivered, then began to recede. Slowly, impossibly slowly, the pale figure faded, melting into the corners, leaving only the faintest trace of cold behind. The whispers diminished, replaced by a heavy, oppressive silence. I sat alone in the darkened living room, shivering. The snow outside had returned to calm white stillness. The house appeared normal again, if one ignored the slight tilts of the ornaments and the subtle distortions in the floorboards. But I knew better. The horror had not left. It had only withdrawn, waiting for another Christmas, another night, another failure to remember. It would always be there, in the shadows, in the whispers, in the hollow eyes that haunted my reflection. I will never be alone on a Christmas night again. Even in silence, I hear her voice. Even in warmth, I feel the cold press of the shadows. I cannot escape, and I do not want to. For to escape would be to forget, and to forget would be unforgivable. The house is quiet now. The snow glitters outside, untouched. And yet, when I look into the corners, when I glance at the mirrors, when I step into the hall, I know she is there. Watching. Waiting. Reminding. I will remember. Always. And sometimes, just sometimes, I think I see a small figure in the distance at the edge of the yard. Pale, silent, watching, reminding me that the night is never truly over. That some horrors do not end. That some ghosts, some memories, some guilt, are eternal. Christmas will come again. And so will she.